And hello, my friends. Once again, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Here we are. Luiz Lima here from Orlando, Florida. This is Spiritism, a closer look. You are on Kardec Radio. And as always, if you'd like to get in touch with us, if you need to, even to suggest topics so we can, bring over here for discussion, you got our contact information down on your screen. Well, so let's get started. Tonight, we are going to take a closer look at dreams. Dreams. It's a very interesting subject to begin with. I think everyone is always interested because there are so many ways of talking about it, understanding different concepts about it. There's a scientific view, there's the philosophical view, there's a psychological view, there's a spiritist view. So it becomes a vast subject for study altogether. So let me just start saying one thing before we get into actually how Spiritism sees dreams. A lot of times when you want to know a little bit more about dreams, usually we go for articles, information on the internet, stuff like that. And for the most part, we end up coming across with some scientific study of some sort. A little bit more detailed or not, a little bit more information or not. But in general, you go into a scientific thing. But let's make this difference clear here. Science studies the sleep patterns. So you are sleeping, and that's where science is going to concentrate their their research. Sleep patterns, they will not look into the dream content. All right, so they look at dream patterns, the REM, red eye movement, and all of those things. So it looks into phases of sleep, regardless of its content or images. Spiritism, as much as other studies in about the subject, we don't look at these sleep patterns. We look into the content. We look into the content, which is a completely different thing. Is a completely different study view. The parameters that we need to use to discuss one are not the same that you have to use to discuss the other. They don't really cross ways per se, because the criteria of analysis is completely different. That does not mean that one is better than the other. It's just different. Okay. So the whole thing about the content of the dream is, it seems to be related to the activities that are going on in your life. In principle, that's what most people think about it or even agree on. So it would be, in this case, it would be advisable to, prepare to go to bed, to sleep. Just quiet down a little bit. Don't watch violent TV scenes or movies or anything like that. In general, everybody kind of talks about this. Most people understand it this way. So yeah, in Spiritism too, very important. Preparing for your sleep, preparing to go to bed, it's gonna matter for the content of your dream and the restfulness of your night. If you are worried or preoccupied with some going on, something that you have to do tomorrow or in 2 days, or you have a very big thing going on in 3 or 4 days, all of those things can and will, for the most part, affect the dream. They have a tendency. We all have a tendency to dream about these things. Well, it could be true or not. It's not the same for everyone. Everyone has their own patterns, their own ways. But overall, yes, if you're really worried about something meaningful to you, important in your life, big decisions, a big thing in your professional life coming up, yeah, it will impact your dream to the point that you will somehow dream about it. Not necessarily good or bad, just dream about it. We're not getting into if it's good or bad here. So, in the Spirit's book, when the spirits are answering the questions to Allan Kardec, one of the spirits says something along these lines that I'm going to tell you in 3 words. We die daily. We die daily. Well, because that's from the spiritual point of view, that's what happens. We kind of disconnect, not totally, but we kind of disconnect the spirit, the soul. The soul disconnects from the body, right? And the spirit is free. The soul is free to, you know, live in the spirit world for whatever, 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours. So, for the spirit, it's like he dies every day. He goes on to the spirit world every night. There are usually, we come to an agreement that there are 3 types of dreams when it comes to, the soul going away uh, in the spirit world, but the body stays, of course, right? The first is called the common dream. Common dream is what most of us have, and the common dream are more related to what's going on in your life, in your corporeal life, what's going on at the time. Like I said, if you're really preoccupied, if you're really worried about something that's taking place in your life, you will very possibly make you dream about it. That's a common dream. The second type of dream is a little more away from the physical life, from material life. It's called reflexive dream. So it still can be affected by what's going on in your life, corporeal life, but actually the soul is able to penetrate more. That would be probably the word, penetrate more into the spirit world and retain what took place during that night. And the third type of dream is called spiritual dream. Spiritual dream is when the soul liberates itself almost completely, never completely because you would die, but almost completely. And now it's free out there in the spirit world to do what it has to do. That kind of dream can lead to views and images of past things or even what's coming. But that kind of dream is organized by very highly evolved spirits. They have to organize this, so it makes sense for the spirit to go ahead into the spirit world and make good use of that. Not necessarily, but that's the goal for the spirit, to make good use of its experiences, to have possible relationships and talk to other people, relate to other spirits somehow. And that's what in general the spirit's book is going to tell us. The spirit's book has several chapters, has several questions on one chapter addressing the situation. So you got the spirit's book there, and there are, I think, 18 questions talking about this. Well, we're not going to go question by question, but some of the interesting things that I'm pulling off on the text. And the text comes from the spirits. Allan Kardec is asking the questions. The spirits, the highly evolved the spirits, are answering to him, and that's what we're getting here. So one thing is, the images that the spirit sees in the spirit world when he goes out there on a spiritual dream, not necessarily have any relation with the corporeal life. Those are images for the spirit, for whatever he needs. It doesn't have to do necessarily with what happened on that day or on that week or what's going on at the moment with your life. Not necessarily. So sometimes we go into these dreams, pick up some information, and we come back, wake up, and it doesn't make any sense, or it's very fragmented. You see, that could be memories of a past thing. It could be presentment of the future, God willing, because for this to happen, to foresee the future somehow, it's not for everyone. It's God willing. It's something the soul has to be in a place at the same moment to see something that you will be allowed to see, not even to bring back, just to be there to see. So it's God willing. You just don't want to go and go. No, that's not it. It's not going to happen that way. So these images are real images to the spirit. Now, when the spirit comes back, or when the soul comes back and we wake up, not necessarily we are going to retain what we saw. And the reason for that is to retain what the spirit picked up or lived, because it's a experience that the spirit had. For us to have this in our brain, the brain is physical. Everything that connects the spirit world into our physical body, the brain being the master of it, would have to be in place so we can secure, so we can retain that. And not necessarily we will, because of the conditions. It's like another spirit trying to talk to us. For example, we can't not necessarily retain that. It's not, it never happens. No, it's not like this. It could or it could not. It depends on a series of conditions and what's going on at the time. There's one interesting question that for me was very interesting the very first time I saw it. When Allan Kardec goes to the spirits and asks on question 412, here's the question: can the activity of the spirit during the repose or sleep of the body fatigue the body? Meaning, is it possible that your dreams make your body, tired? The answer is yes. And if you think about it, right? How many times we wake up and we are just sweating? Oh my God, what a dream. Nightmares, stuff like that. Sometimes the heartbeat rate is all the way up there because you wake up in the middle of the night and, uh, the body feels it. The body, the body reacts to the mind. We already know that by now. Depending on what's going on with the mind, you will reflect directly in the body. You will. So, like I said, sweat and heartbeat rate, that can all be a straight consequence of a visual, an event that took place during the dreams in the spirit world. And then there's a very long question, not the question, the answer is very long. The question is actually very short, which is question 402 in the Spirit's book. And the question is, look at the question. That's a very interesting question. How can we confirm the fact that a spirit is free during sleep? How can we confirm? And then there's a very long answer. It's several paragraphs, very long. We're not going to read the whole thing here, but I extracted 4 phrases from the answer, just 4 phrases. I urge you to go into Spirit's book, question 402, read it through. Anyhow, 4 lines that I took from this. First, 4 phrases. First, sleep partly frees the soul from the body. So it's an opportunity for the soul to live in the spirit world without having to live it in the material world. So some progress can take place because you're going to deal with situations that you have to deal with for progress. Everything is about getting better, being better. So those part of these dreams can be because of that. The soul is free from the body to live soul related events, not necessarily to the body. Second phrase, sleep has more influence than you think on your life. Sleep has more influence than you think on your life. Very commonly, we might not be aware of, but very commonly, what happens is we come back from a dream and we are under the influence of whatever took place that will affect our life in a corporeal, in a material world. When we come back when we wake up, it could be some sort of good advice from highly evolved spirits. It could be bad ideas introduced to you by those spirits who don't like you, obsessors and spirits that don't see you as a good spirit. They don't like you. So in those things will influence our lives. It is very interesting to see it, all these great scientists of the world through humanity. You go back as long as you go back to, they had these brilliant breakthroughs in science, discovering things and situations and how to get around things that changed humanity, several of them. And then they do their discoveries, and so you go to them and you say, how did you find this? And very commonly they're going to say, well, I had a dream about it. I had a dream about it means they went out there, right? The soul went out there to pick up, if you will, good advice from highly evolved spirits, and that will be used by that spirit when he wakes up. That person, their scientist or whatever it is, can use that information. How many composers, popular music composers, we hear about it? How did you get this song? How did it come to you? Oh, I was, I woke up in the middle of the night, went to my piano and played it and wrote the lyrics, and that was it. 15 minutes. We have a lot of stories about it. So that's what they're trying to tell us here with this phrase. Sleep has more influence than you think on your life. So that being said, when we go to sleep, we should be aware of it, and we should go to bed, just say a prayer. Let's just, quiet down a little bit before going to bed, maybe a shower. So just, make things easy for you, for all of us, myself included. Third phrase, a dream is the memory of what your spirit has seen during sleep. We kind of talked about it, right? So that it's a memory. It's something that the spirit saw or lived through, and he brings in, and that becomes, it might get into our memory, physical memory, and then we remember. And then years after that dream, we can tell people, oh, when I was a kid or when I was this age, I dreamed about this and this and this. So it kind of stuck to your corporeal memory. And some of these things are going to be in our minds, and we are going to use them in our favor, hopefully 30 years after that, 40 years after that. Fourth phrase. Evil spirits also use dreams to torment weak and cowardly souls. Wow, that's a big one. That's a big one. Evil spirits use dreams to attack That's their path into our soul to attack us, to bring bad ideas, bad things, to make us, to make our life miserable. That's one way. So again, when we go to sleep at night, right, we have to be aware of this. We don't want to go to bed, full of hatred and sadness, because it opens the doors for evil spirits to attack us. They will. They're waiting for, they are waiting for that to happen. When we give them a chance, they will not hesitate. They will come over. They will come to us. And lastly, I want to just discuss this. If you think about mediums, okay, mediums, those who don't have to be sleeping, right, to get in trance, so they go into a trance state, and they are able to communicate with spirits. See, I'm talking about real mediums, not because sensitivity is one thing. You can kind of, I'm feeling something is around here. That's one thing. I'm talking about mediums that are able to fully establish communication with spirits, full mediumship. So I'm talking about those. Okay. What is, how do we see dreams for people like that? Because again, dream is the soul is out there. But now for the medium, they have a much more, it's much easier for them to just penetrate, if you will, the spirit world. In the dream, it's even more because the body is just resting. So the control from the mind or the spirit over the body is minimum. The soul is out there. So for them, it becomes really a challenge because they become vulnerable. And by being vulnerable, mediums cannot risk to go out there, with low energy. They have to be protected and protect by themselves and ask protection during the night. Ask the highly evolved spirits, mentors, spirit guides to help you, because you're going to go out there. And, a medium is still a human person. So they have their difficulties, they have their troubles, they have their challenges, just like everybody else. In that content, they're no different than anybody else. But when it gets to having their soul out there, it's much more vulnerable. So mediums have to take a lot of care. They have to really be centered. They have to really be concentrated on, doing good things all the time, working for the good. That's what they're mediums for in the first place, right? Doing good work for those in need. That's the spirit they have to have every day. Because when it's time to rest, when it's time to sleep, they go out there, they are vulnerable. And if they are vulnerable, but they have the doors open for that is favorable for evil spirits, guess what's going to happen? Evil spirits will come in, medium is vulnerable in their dreams, and they're going to, like Spirit's book says, torment. They will torment the medium who is sleeping. When he wakes up, he is going to be tormented because he's going to carry that impression. He might not be aware of why he woke up that way, but he will. If evil spirits are able to grab his soul, grab that soul, oh yeah, they're gonna do, they're gonna come over to him, to her. So that's what what I wanted to bring you about dreams. Again, this is in the Spirit's book, so I suggest you just go to the book. It's to say the least. Of course, it's a full blown study, but to say the least, it's interesting. And we have a lot of information from other spirits. This is all on the Spirits book, Codification, Allan Kardec, very first book, Codification. But you see, this is in other Spiritist books, way past Allan Kardec. Many more, much more information came after him. There are a lot of books talking about it. It is an interesting subject, so, take the time to read it. Thank you very much for joining us today. We will be here next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Spiritism, A Closer Look. Good night and be well.